Imagine that time is being wasted every day all over the world, and that there's a simple way to put it not just to good use, but to great use. Imagine further that it is your time that's being wasted and that you could do something about it. The time before things start is being routinely wasted every day all over the world. There are simple and powerful ways to put this wasted time to high impact use by showing up early and knowing what to do. Knowing how to turn waste into something of value at zero cost can benefit everyone listening today and many others. So how did I become aware of this waste and find a solution? Let me take you back to Krakow, Poland in 2005. I was about to give a guest workshop on entrepreneurship to an MBA class. I was early to find the room, check the projector, sound and internet, make sure that everything worked. I hate being late, and in order not to be late, I had to be early. Everything was working and I was ready, 8 minutes ahead of the scheduled start time. Some class participants were early as well, and they were also waiting. Then the organizer whispered to me, "We will start a few minutes late. Not everyone will be on time." I felt a flash of anger. Why? I was angry because meetings should never start late. I was angry with her casual assumption that starting late was somehow okay. I was angry with the idea that my timekeeping standards were going to be tainted with her lack of professionalism. And I was angry with the people who were going to be late even though I hadn't met them yet. But I thought to myself, she and the latecomers are not to know that I regard lateness as some kind of cardinal sin. So I said in a way that was meant to sound firm, but perhaps came across as passive-aggressive, or maybe even just aggressive. But that's not fair. It's not fair to make the people who are on time wait for the sloppy latecomers. It's not fair on me. I'm on time. I'm already here. And it's not right if these MBA students get the impression that it's okay to be unprofessional. She took offence, bristled at the implied insults, and whispered back to me, "That's as maybe. They are not used to it. You can't do that." Now, you don't know me. I'm an entrepreneur, 3 times CEO, perhaps with an exaggerated sense of my own self-worth. And I do not like being told what I can and can't do. And by this stage, we were at the front of a class with people watching us curiously as the tension between me and the organizer was clearly visible. Perhaps a little bit of ego was at stake. It wasn't the time for words. It was the time for action. I whispered, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start early." And before she could react, I slowly turned away from her towards the class and said, "While we're waiting for the others, let's get started. I'm going to ask you to stand up, introduce yourselves, tell us in 1 minute who you are, what you do, why you're here, and what you want to learn from an entrepreneur like me. And everyone else, listen and pay attention. I may ask you to assess someone else's introduction." I then just pointed at someone in the front row and said, "You go first." She rose somewhat hesitantly to her feet and started to speak. And thus started my journey of getting things going early before they begin. A journey that has changed my life and can change yours. Because what happened in that MBA class was a revelation. The atmosphere changed in a moment. People woke up. They realized I might pick on them next. They started paying attention. Some started thinking about what they would say. Others were listening intently to their classmates. Others were worrying about how they looked, even checking their hair. They turned from being passive attendees into active participants, no longer spectators watching a match, but rather players on the pitch. And as more students arrived, they walked into a class where people were paying attention, they were alert, they could see something was going on. Also, I got a much better sense of my audience and their expectation. and the class got to know more about each other than they did previously. My host, the one who had wanted me to start late, realised that she had lost and stalked out of the room, offended and angry. I'm not actually sure she was angry, but I rather hope so. I had not just started on time, I had discovered something new. I, and more importantly, the class had won. This experience stuck in my mind. Maybe I could start other events early. So a few weeks later, I was on a panel of business people in front of a larger audience, and I did something similar. 5 minutes before the start, everyone was sitting quietly waiting, and nothing was going on. There were way too many people in the audience to do introductions one by one. So I took a microphone and said, "Please stand up." And I waited till everyone had stood up. And in the next 2 minutes, I said to them, "Please introduce yourself to someone you don't know. Explain to each other what you're expecting to get out of this event." Now, when 300 people stand up and start talking, it makes a lot of noise. It woke the panel up. The audience had to wake up. Even people who don't like icebreakers didn't really have an option. And the impact was similar to back in Krakow. The room sprang to life. Energy, activation and participation erupted, replacing passivity, disengagement and boredom. So what did I learn, and what can you learn? There is always time before things start. It's valuable and it's usually wasted, and putting it to the right use can be as easy and low cost as in these two examples. But there's a similar and bigger problem with a higher payback if you can solve it. Imagine that you are travelling to an event or conference where you expect and want to meet new people with whom you share a common, maybe even a burning interest or passion. Meeting the other attendees may be a major reason for going to the event in the first place. But this event is in a different country or town to the one you live in. And to be on time, you will need to be early, not just 10 minutes early, but arriving in town the night before. Instead of the 5 minutes before things start, we are now looking at the whole evening of the day before. What does this mean? Well, let me give you an example. When I first went to my first TED event, TED Global in 2011, I knew nobody and had no means of reaching out to any other attendees. I found some TED fans in Edinburgh via couchsurfing, and I met them in a bar, but they weren't going to the main TED event. Nice though they were, I would have preferred to have met other TED attendees. Once the event started, there wasn't really enough time to meet everyone. Even though I'm sociable and self-confident, usually, receptions and parties where there are over 1,000 people in the room and you know nobody are a bit intimidating, and you just can't meet everyone. I pondered and thought, the time before these events could be better used too, just like the time before lectures and workshops. Wouldn't it be great if there was a more peaceful time and space to get together with other participants before events start? If I can do it with the couchsurfers, surely it's possible with other attendees of TED events or other events for that matter. I decided that there must be, and it turns out that there is. Since 2014, I've been doing different types of pre-events, events before events. I decided that if I'm travelling to another event in another country, I was going to try to do a pre-event before it started. I've organised pre-events all over the world, in Cape Town, Calgary, Krakow, Edinburgh, New York, Rome, Taipei, Warsaw, and as of yesterday evening, I've even done a pre-event in the cloud before this TEDx, as some of you know. And I've had such positive feedback from the many hundreds of people who have participated. It's not just me who found value in the time before things start. If I wasn't convinced of it, I wouldn't be here giving this talk. I won't go into a detailed how-to of doing a successful pre-event, but I do want to share 3 key learnings. Getting the pre-event culture right, making them welcoming, inclusive and friendly really matters. It's like hosting a good party. For example, at our pre-event in New York, we made our picnic lunch together. I don't care how important we are in our normal lives. At my pre-events, we are equal, making the sandwiches, doing the washing up, whatever. Making sure your pre-event design works for people who are shy or nervous is really important. If it works for the timid, the bold, self-confident types will do just fine. Keeping the events low cost or preferably free is important. To get in, Our door policy is just a positive attitude. We want everyone with the right mindset to be able to come, no matter how little money they have. So, TEDxShenkarCollege, to close, let me remind you of why I came to share this idea with you. The time before things start is a potential goldmine of opportunity. If you're going to an event, consider doing a pre-event. If you take the lead, I'll support you if only I can. If you're giving classes or workshops, turn the attendees into participants and reward those who are punctual or early with activities like the ones I described earlier in this talk. There are millions of classes and events going on in schools, universities and elsewhere all over the world every day. So often the time before they start is wasted. Here's my challenge to TEDxShenkarCollege and the online audience. Are you going to put these ideas into action? Are you going to replace detachment, passivity and boredom with engagement, curiosity and stimulation? You can and you should, and if you do, you won't regret it. And it's not just going to make your life more useful, enjoyable and valuable, it's a service for other people as well. I truly believe it's an idea worth spreading.